Algonquin College.
So welcome once again to another end credits production.
Yes, welcome to our second end credits live.
How many of you were here last one? Aaron Blaze? Yeah.
Must have been all the graduating students last time. How many people have heard end credits before?
All right, a few.
All right, that's all right. We're going to make fans out of you. But we're not here to talk about ourselves much. But we are from the podcast End Credits. You can find us on twistmedia.ca or in iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you catch your podcast. And every week we talk to people who work behind the scenes in entertainment. That means no actors or pretty people. Well, Ron's pretty. It's really pretty. I've kind of got a man crush. So we don't talk to actors unless they're voice actors or they've done something cool behind the scenes. So we've been doing this for almost 3.5 years. We have 243 episodes as of this week. So lots for you to go back and check out. Tons of animators. We've had Floyd Norman on twice. We've had Aaron Blaze, Tom Cito, Jacques Muller. Everybody you've ever idolized in animation, except Glenn Keane, because he keeps backing out. But he'll be on eventually. We've had them on. So check us out. And also, I would suggest, as of right now, following us on Facebook, facebook.com/creditspodcast, because we're going to be asking some questions about tonight to kind of figure out who our next guest will be. And also on Twitter, you can follow @CTibbets.
Or @slam_tango,
Don't
but
bother.
I never check my Twitter.
Yeah, don't bother. But without further ado, us yakking...
Actually, I should say that we are filming this tonight, so there will be a YouTube video going up as well.
Yes, and we should thank our sponsors, even though the one hasn't even showed up. Vela Construction, yes, a roofing company sponsored this.
Always nice to have a roof over your head.
Yeah, so if you need a new roof, I can give you a business card. He was so busy doing roofs that he couldn't give me anything to put up on the screen for him, so he's out of luck. And thank you to the Algonquin Students Association for helping flip the bill on the theater and putting 200 of you in seats. And I believe we're at over 300 people in attendance tonight. Awesome. Just fantastic. So thank you all for showing up. But without further ado, let's get Ron Husband out here so you can hear somebody important talk.
Yeah. Give it up for Ron.
Oh, I forgot the lanyards. The lanyards are back there still. We have goodies to give away.
Yeah, we have goodies to give away.
So for really good questions later on, we're giving away 2 copies of Ron's book. And just for fun, we have lanyards that are based on his book, and they are seizure-inducing.
Yeah, seizure-inducing lanyards.
Multiple settings, code blue, code green, all's good.
Rave ready.
Did you guys enjoy the lecture? I did go around and I was talking to a few people who were not animators who had no idea how much went into just making a character say something and how much had to be figured out. So you did your job.
A lot of work.
Yeah, well.
But took a lot away from the talk. And I really liked the stuff with the elk. So many people don't realize how much work goes into all the figuring things out. It was nice when we had Aaron here and he was showing everybody nice finished videos and stuff, and he roughly touched base on thumbnailing and quick sketches. That's why I thought it was very important to bring you here, is you're all about that. So you really got to expand on that. And maybe it's not the most exciting part of animation, but it's probably the most important part of animation.
Very, 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 very important. I talk with a lot of prospective animators, young animators, they just want to get in there and just start animating. You just want to start, just want to make something happen, but you got to really think it out. And I think I mentioned before that Eric Larson said that, the only thing that limits an animator is his imagination and his ability to draw what he imagines. And so it's very, very important to put something down on paper. And another thing I learned early on in my animation experience is that you spend half your time thinking about a scene and the other half actually animating the scene. If the scene's going to take you 4 days to animate. The first 2.5 days, 2 days is spent just thumbnailing and thinking about the scene. You think about the scene first, then you thumbnail it. You think about it some more. You take it over to somebody else and get some more input as to whether or not it's working. And then, then you start animating it. But a lot of time and thought is put into pre-planning a scene and to bring it off successfully.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I encountered that this week. I work for somebody who's trying to start a video game company, and I'm doing a lot of animation right now. And about halfway through the day, yesterday, he pulled me into the office. He said, "I talked to you for 2 minutes." I go, "Oh, okay." And he brings me, he goes, "Perhaps you could be using your time better." What do you mean? He's like, "Well, you've probably had the pen in your hand for about 20% of the day." Okay, that's probably not right, but okay, where are you going with this? He's like, "Just perhaps you could be using your time better." I'm like, I have finished 3 walk cycles already today in a 3/4 perspective. What more can I be doing? And he just didn't understand the whole planning aspect. When I'm rolling my chair back and I'm looking at the screen and I'm hitting play and then I'm sitting back and I am accomplishing something, and he got very angry at me, and I kind of wanted to get violent with him. My response was to get up and walk to the door and say, "Point taken." He's like, "You're just walking away?" I'm like, "No, point taken." The joys of when you're done school. Just wait.
So are you still going to have a job at the end of the week?
Oh yeah, because by the end of the day, I had 4 walk cycles and 4 attacks, and he was pleased. But at one point, he could tell there was a lot of steam coming off of my head, and I had immediately stopped eating my lunch at that point and just set it aside. "I hope you realize I didn't mean you can't eat your lunch." I'm like, I'm using my time wisely. Now, you and I had a conversation today over some really delicious pizza.
The best pizza in my life. Yeah.
Downtown in the market, they do some wood-burning pizza. It was fantastic. I was talking about the arthritis in my hands, and you were telling me about going over to lunch with 2 of your mentors. And you were talking about how at their age, they were no longer even able to pick up a pencil and do what they loved and able to do for so many years, and how that's really brought you to what you're doing now in your book. And just maybe talk about that a bit.
Yeah. As young artists, we oftentimes take for granted, our talents, that we have. And I've met so many people, so many young artists who discouraged with what they're doing, and they just quit drawing for long stretches of time. And you really owe it to yourself to just push through whatever is holding you back from just drawing and painting and sculpting, whatever you have artistic in you, to come out, to have a body of work to leave to your children, your grandchildren, others who are going to come along and see what you've done. it is, because it's coming a time, when I won't be able to draw, I won't be able to do anything creative, because I'm going to get old and I'm going to die. I'm not looking forward to it, but it's going to happen, and I've been exposed to, great animators, in their older age, and just weren't able to even hold a pencil, at some point in time. And so, while I can, I encourage artists to, basically draw more. When I wrote my book, I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel and tell you do these 3 things and you become a great artist, you become a great draftsman. It's just get out and draw more. Just get out and draw. Most animators, most artists know that they should draw more, but they just, I don't have time, I've got this commitment, I've got that. They just don't take the time to, let's say, sharpen the saw. If you sharpen the saw, you make more accurate cuts and you make less cuts. You try to cut a wood with a dull saw, you'll break a sweat, you'll keep going. But you just have to take time to sharpen the saw, which will cut down on what you would do in the sense of being sharp and being able to draw with a purpose. I taught quick sketching to, I did a workshop when I was working with Disney, animated people who make a living drawing pictures, animating. And I taught a workshop on how to quick sketch. And part of the assignment, after initial what to look for, observation, and we went through the whole 9 yards of quick sketching techniques. And the assignment was to go out to a mall or some place where people gather and to just draw. And the next week they came back, and all these professional artists, they were pleasantly frustrated because the lady I was drawing, she just got up and walked away. I'm trying to script, and people are moving, and so they just quick sketch and to draw and put something on paper. It'll quicken your observational skills, number one. Plus, you'll get better at what you're doing because whether it's tennis or whether it's piano lessons, if you don't practice, you don't get any better. You go to a basketball game and the guy shoots a basket and you swish. Well, it's because he's shot baskets in the gym that week, 100 times, every day. So when he gets to the line, it looks so effortless. And so when you draw, it can look effortless. But my quick sketches are just practice, because in practice, I literally have hundreds of sketchbooks. I've got sketchbooks going back to 1962 when I was 12 years old, and I've been constantly sketching. And again, I look at it as practice, and which prepares me to do an illustration. It prepares me to do my animation. It prepares me to do my, anything I'm doing. It's made easier. It's not easy, but it's made easier because I've done all this practice beforehand. And so I would encourage you as artists, prospective animators, illustrators, whatever you're doing, practice. Take the time to practice, because it'll only pay dividends in the very end. Because quick sketching for me it turned into a 38-year career at Disney. Based on the fact that I can draw, and that was simply how I got hired and brought into the company.
And Corey was telling me earlier that when you were out getting that pizza, it was you actually started sketching the girl who was putting the pizza in the oven.
Yeah.
And you gave it to her.
You couldn't stop them.
You sketch with a purpose. You sketch with a purpose. But she was doing something interesting. And that's what observation is about. Is looking at your subject and finding that interesting pose that is communicating and saying something. She had that pizza deal, and she was poking it in the oven and turning it around and taking it. And that's very, very interesting. But and to draw that and to capture it. And so it's just something that I do, and I enjoy doing it because it's a challenge in drawing.
Yeah, I can honestly say I think you are addicted to sketching. The only time the man did not sketch today while we were in the Byward Market was when I was stuffing his face with something. You literally cannot draw when you're eating a maple beaver tail.
Found out the hard way. But it was totally delicious, I tell you.
But I truly think you might be the king of quick sketches. I've never seen anything like it. We would find these perfect sunny spots, and he would sit down, and within 30 seconds, the sketchbook is in his hand, and I'd see something, I'd look back, he was sketching it, I'd look over, the person would be gone, I'd look down, and he's finished.
Yeah. No, it's just basic. It's basic. I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. I was just trying to get artists to draw more. And over the years, I do my quick sketch, and people would walk by at work, at lunchtime or breaks. I'd be out and sketching, and people said, "You ought to write a book about that. You ought to write." And probably it took me about 10 years or more of being encouraged to, when I started teaching, and I was the same principles that I was using in my classes for the model were the same things that were being communicated in my quick sketches. And I said, okay, I'll do this. So I took 5 years. It took me 5 years. I was working, and so it was like, after I got home from work, my wife would do the scanning and typing for me, but I was trying to find all the images from hundreds of sketchbooks, to match up with the text that I was using, and and the certain principles I was trying to get across. And after, I said, about 5 years, I came up with the rough manuscript, and I got put in touch with the editor and over Focal Press, and it's good to have an editor because some of the chapter headings, I have a chapter in there about drawing children. It says the chapter heading is the joy of drawing children, but my chapter head that I sent with the manuscript said capturing children. I mean, I'm thinking, I'm capturing with my pencil, and that's a good title for this chapter. And my editor said, "No, Ron, that's not quite, But the book, it had been out about 8 months, and I got a call from my editor, and he said a Japanese publisher had bought the rights, and they want to do a Japanese translation. And then about a month later, he called and said a Chinese publisher had bought the rights, and they're going to do a Chinese translation. So this summer, there's going to be quick sketching with Ron Husband is going to be in the Asian market. So it just goes to show you that it's just a basic drawing and encouraging artists, because the book was written to encourage and inspire artists to draw more. Simple as that. And so that message is into the foreign market as well as American market in the sense of, or the English market in the sense that art is universal. It's a universal language, and in finding those the emotions in the sense of body language and what to look for when you're sketching and what your subject is doing. That moment in time when they're doing it and they're not there anymore. And capturing that split second, and then there's things to look for and certain techniques to apply to be able to draw with a purpose and sketch with a purpose, which is going to prepare you to be able to be a better illustrator and be a better animator, to be a better stop action or stop motion. You know, it's just about communication and story, and what you're looking for is body language, which is going to help communicate your story.
Make you a better person of observation.
Observations,
Yes.
you know, film, you know, animators are you know, have been exposed to basically filmmaking, you know, and telling a story in all aspects of it, to music, color, you know, the dialogue, you know, as well as the drawing, you know, and again, that was the great exposure I got. A takeaway from Disney is, you know, we were well-rounded in all aspects of storytelling, and that holds true to people who've been exposed to animation, are able to transition into other areas. You know, Walt Kelly with Pogo, you know, he started out at Disney, and Virgil Park started at Disney, Bill Peet. You look at Tim Burton and Brad Bird, you know, I work with those guys in animation. They started out in animation, and they've transitioned into live action. And you know, you've got great painters, and you know, I can go down a list of animators who've transitioned into other areas, but they're not. But there's people who are at the top of their game in other areas, great illustrators and great painters and great. You know, they'd be lost in the field of animation, but animators can transition into those fields because we've got a whole range of exposure as to the filmmaking,
and
storytelling.
you really learn about not only motion, but the beats of storytelling, and the musicality behind it. It makes you a better filmmaker, and it makes you, you know, just a better editor. It really translates into all of media. I think that's why I've had such an easy time going from animation to doing filmmaking and just about everything. Anything I've tried in the entertainment industry, I think it's all based on my experience as an animator that I'm able to get out there and do that. Plus, if you've been doing animation for a while, you get really used to being in weird situations with a mirror in front of you going. So sitting up in front of a bunch of students, I don't feel judged. But if your book is half inspiring as it has been just spending a day with you, then I think people are going to take a lot away from the book. So if you don't get the book today, then go get the book, because this man has a lot to teach.
Oh, appreciate that.
So how did we want to handle...
Well, I think we decided we're going to give those two books to the very best questions.
Okay. Yeah, so it's much better than the Alice Cooper throwing the chicken into the audience.
Yeah. So I think there's a microphone right up there. I don't know if somebody's going to be bringing that around or if we're just lining up in front of that. I think lining up orderly is a really good option. So we have two books to give away, and then we have these...
our disco bondage lanyards.
So, do I just go ahead?
Well, all right. We can chat amongst ourselves later. Go ahead with your question.
Sorry, this is my first time using a mic.
What's your name?
Lonnie? Sorry, I'm so
okay.
nervous. I've never done this before. But earlier you were talking, am I supposed to stand this close to it, or can I back up?
Just do what feels right. Just do what feels right.
Relax. Talk naturally.
Okay, so earlier you were talking about how you never let anyone tell you no, but what do you do if you're your own worst enemy and it's yourself that you can't get past? Like, you just feel like you're not good enough and you're constantly struggling and you're afraid of everything?
Wow, that sounds like a question for Dr. Phil.
In relation to art, in animation.
No, I just kidding. You have to get over your own self-criticism in the sense that, every scene I've ever done, I can look back and say, I could have done that better, but you have to move on. You got time restraints and things you have to do, but it's okay to be critical of your work, because you always want to. If you're not critical of your work, you become satisfied, and you won't make any progress. But you have to get over putting a barrier to stop you. To saying no to yourself. Well, take a good look at what you're doing and say, okay, what can make this better? How can I improve on what I'm doing? You take a good look, and maybe you ask a teacher or somebody who can give you some positive advice. Maybe your drawing needs to be stronger. Maybe some aspect of what you're doing can be improved. And so what do I need to improve to get better? You just think of a track athlete who is not fast as he wants to be, and so he just quits running the track because I'm not as fast as I want to be. You go get outside help and say, what do I need to do? What exercise do I need to do to improve myself? And so my drawings are, in my book, there's a section in there where I compare what I was doing 20 years ago with what I'm doing now. And there's a vast improvement of what I was doing back then to what I'm doing now. And so you can look at your own criticism of your own work and say, what do I need to do to improve? And so getting a second eye, a second opinion to see things that you may not be able to see, and to keep on pressing on, because you don't want to stop and build a barrier and say, I'm not going to go any further. But what you want to do is find out and map out a plan of what you can do to succeed and to make yourself better. So, but just don't stop. Don't put up a barrier to where you can't move any further. But press on, because this piece is not going to be as good as the next piece, because you always want to improve on every piece you do. It's going to get better and better and better. Okay, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to happen. It's going to get better, because anything you do, from piano playing to tennis playing, you have to practice in order to get better. So don't be. It's okay to be critical of yourself, but don't be so critical that you put a stop to progressing. If that's any help.
Okay, thank you.
And
thanks for the advice.
A lot of artists, we have this thing where we look at other artists and we go, oh, I wish I was that good. But you have to remember that not every artist has only been doing it as long as you have. I look at Ron's stuff, and I know if I worked harder and longer, I could do that too, but it takes time. You can't just expect yourself to be as amazing as some other artist who's possibly been doing it for 10 years longer than you. You have to focus on improving yourself for yourself. You can only better yourself that way. You can never compare yourself to other artists, or you won't move forward. You'll just constantly feel defeated, because you're always going to look at other artists. And I've been in the industry for over 20 years myself, and I still have to catch myself looking at somebody else's stuff and going, I wish I could do perspective like that. But that's also not the type of art I do either. So focus on you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi.
Name,
Nia.
rank, serial number.
Are you in Are you in animation school right now?
Yeah, I'm in my second year here
Wonderful.
as an animation student. And I was just curious to know what your favorite character to animate was in your career, and what aspect of them you preferred.
I get asked that quite a lot. It's like asking, who's your favorite child? I got 3 kids. And I don't have a favorite character. They all have a built-in degree of difficulty, and having a successful character, I guess, would be one in which it does what the story point calls for. And so, yeah, I do not have a favorite character, but I do have, like, the performance that they put across. Is it convincing to the audience. And so that's how I judge my characters.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your question.
Hello.
Hello.
Name, year.
My name's Mark.
Okay, Mark.
Just a question. When you mentioned that you worked on projects such as Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin, is it possible that you and Aaron Blaise worked together? And if so, what was the experience like?
Let's see, Aaron was, at the time, Aaron was in Florida. Disney had 2 projects going on simultaneously. One crew was in Florida, and I was always stationed in Burbank. So we never met other than through the dailies that we see what was being done in Florida, and they would ship out with their dailies, but what had been done that week, and they show it on the screen as far as anime. So I never had the opportunity to work with him on a one-on-one level, but I did know him by name.
Oh.
Yeah.
It should be mentioned that, yeah, you were roommates with Jacques Muller at one point.
Yeah, I was, yeah. Jacques Miller, yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Hi, my name is Maria.
Hi, Maria.
Before I ask you my question, this is your first time trying Beaver Tales here in Ottawa, right?
Yes, it is.
So,
First time in Canada.
first time in
First time,
Canada.
yeah, first time in
Well,
Canada.
if ever you decide to come back to Ottawa, come here during the winter time. We have a canal called the Rideau Canal, and during winter time it's the longest skating rink in Ottawa. So, and it's the best place to eat beaver tails there.
We saw that earlier, and Corey explained to me how it was frozen up and it's long. But I do not want to be traveling in the wintertime in the snow. I went to the elk farm in Montana, and it was 28 below zero, and that's for a Southern California kid. It's just it was a little bit much for me to handle. We went across the street to a diner to get something to eat. The hotel was literally across the street, and we dressed up. We looked like remember Ralphie's little brother in the Christmas Story. That's what we looked like when we walked into the diner, and the guy says, "Where are you boys from? Florida?" I enjoy. Thank you for your invitation, but I'll wait till a more favorable weather.
Yeah, we do -40 here in winter. So.
Are you sure you really want to subject him to an Ottawa winter?
If he decides to come, I can join him and make sure he stays balanced on the ice. So for my actual question, since you animated John Silver from Treasure Planet, was it difficult because of his 3D model for his cyborg parts?
No, because it was a collaboration between the special effects animators and the actual rough animators, because we would say draw where he is, where his head is, and they would take and size and position where the CGI element were going to be his arm or his head. And so as we animated and gave direction as to where his head would be, they would be able to take those same drawings and figure out where that headpiece was going to be. So it wasn't a worry to us. It was more of a headache to the guys who were working in special effects as to size and to put it where it actually belongs based on the actual rough animation drawings that we were doing.
Cool.
I like that question. Do you think that was book-worthy or lanyard-worthy? And she did want to kill him with a Canadian winter.
That almost might be book-worthy.
All right, then. You can come on down here, and I'll pass you a book. And then after we're done here, there's a table set up outside. We won't be signing autographs in here. Ron is going to come out to the lobby and sign autographs at the table. And there might be some posters we have that can be signed too, sitting at the table. Next question.
Hello. This is awkward. I'm really tall. So my name is Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Hi. I'm in my second year of animation here at Algonquin, and one thing that I try to make a point of asking professionals, especially in the last year or so now that I'm in animation, is asking professionals, because I hear, they talk about some of their success stories, some of their, the projects they've worked on, and as soon as you hear about those stories, lights go off in your head and you're thinking, oh, that's awesome, like they worked on this, and you get all excited. So I try to ask, in your early days, like, did you ever have moments where you were so frustrated that you weren't sure if it was right for you, and if so, what motivated you to keep going? And on that, if you have like a story at all of like your early days that really stands out, I find that stories of struggles always kind of helps me feel like I can relate to some of these professionals. They had this kind of a hard time. I relate to that, and maybe it'll help me in my own journey.
Wow, that's
Sorry. I know that was a very long question.
No, it's valid. My early days in animation, when I came into Disney Studio, I had no idea of what an animator was or what an animator did. I just wanted to do something more creative. And being in that environment, which was extremely creative, the people doing what they do best, and being encouraged to seek creativity and to what can you bring to the table. So that really, my early stages was filled with just the wonder of it all, and seeing drawings that actually move, and so it didn't take a lot to motivate me. There was a lot of, not so much competition, but there was other young guys who were just so eager to learn, and the older guys were so eager to teach us what they knew. So there was never a point where I was discouraged as far as the learning curve. Now I did experience some situations where I was called in by management and told I'd never animated Disney, and another time as I was promoted to an animator, I would never do anything other than generic crowd scenes and multiple character scenes. But during those periods of time, I found other areas that pushed me into doing illustrations. So I wanted to do something more creative and more creativity, which I wasn't really feeling at work. Just doing the crowd scenes without the personality and without the dialogue and the close-ups and all the meaty stuff that you really want. But I found my creativity in other areas, so I went off into illustration, doing illustrations and doing comic or humorous illustrations, and pushing myself in that area where I became more, I had a creative outlet without being depressed and feeling dejected at work. So I could still go to work with a smile on my face and do my job and still have a creative outlet doing my own personal artwork, and continuing to work hard until I got a break. And I got a chance to be on a crew that was doing a character on Rescuers Down Under, and got on the Cody's team, and so just keeping on going and keeping on pushing, and striving to improve, and like I said, the discouragement that comes from others, or you just don't feel yourself progressing. Think about you got to get a good grade. If you want a job over here, then you got to stay in school and get all the good grades and do all the things that you need to prepare yourself for over here. So thinking about down the road, what's going to happen down the road? How am I going to attain this goal if I am discouraged here and this isn't happening? So there's always other things to take in consideration to fight through those times when the creativity may not seem to be there, and the motivation. You've been given a great talent. The Lord has blessed me with this talent, and so what am I going to do with it? It's like, you give a kid a present, and that kid is playing with that toy that you gave him, And for a parent or a grandparent who gives a child something, and they're playing with that toy that you gave them, that's great pleasure. In Chariots of Fire, there's a line that Eric Little says. He talks about motivation. He says, what motivates you to run? And he says, when I run, I feel God's pleasure. And when I draw, I feel God's pleasure because He's given me a talent that I'm playing with. I'm exercising that. And so that's got to give Him pleasure to see that I'm doing. If I'm sitting there and I'm not doing anything with it, you're not doing yourself any good. You're not doing any other, because drawing or any type of art is communicating with others what's in you, and you put it on paper, and others are going to respond to that. They're going to look at that, and they're going to have some kind of reaction. That's what you want. I've done illustrations where I've had people just stare at my illustrations. And one guy, older gentleman, looked at one of my illustrations, and he, after about 15 minutes of just staring, he turned to me and said, I got to go unless I'm going to embarrass myself. And I did an illustration for a lady, and I presented it to her. She told me what she wanted over the phone, and I sketched it out, sent her some rough drawings of it, and I did a pen and ink illustration of what she wanted. And when I presented it to her, she sat at my table and just cried. Just cried. It's an emotional thing for her to see what was in her mind that I was able to capture. And so it's those type of moments that make you want to continue with your craft and to get better at your craft, to see how it's going to affect others. Because what you do in your animation and what you do as an artist is designed for others to look at and to see a reflection of what's inside of you. So that's motivation enough.
That's actually a really good answer. Thank you very much.
Do you listen to podcasts?
I do listen to podcasts.
Do you listen to the Bancroft Brothers?
I do, actually.
So you heard the podcast on failure.
Yes, I did quite
Excellent.
recently, actually.
Very inspiring episode.
That one did help me a lot because it's nice to hear from people in the industry who, it's not just, oh, I did this and I'm successful at this, or it was hard work. Sure, it was hard work, but it's also nice to hear the times where it wasn't so,
straightforward.
And yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm a first year here in animation. You totally answered my question in the last 10 seconds. So the next one that I can think of is, what is the funniest thing you ever witnessed while doing a quick sketch? Or entertaining, probably.
There's always the basketball scene.
In my book, there's a page, I was in Australia and in a couple of places where there's people who are scratching their derriere.
Here we call it an arse.
That was probably some of the funniest things that, I could say funny, but more entertaining and interesting things that I've watched. But being observant and being a people watcher, you're going to see all kinds of things. And you should see the things that were edited out of the book.
Thank
All
you.
the quick sketches you did at Walmart.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm in third year. Have you ever worked with or for ILM?
Industrial Light and Magic?
Yes.
No, never. I'm a traditional animator. They deal with more CGI elements, but I've never worked out. My whole career has been at Disney. I spent 30 years in feature animation and the last 8 in Disney publications. So my whole basically working career has been spent under the Disney banner.
That's awesome.
Well, back to earlier. What are you doing? Oh, shame him, everybody. Boo. Boo. But earlier, he was talking about frustration and feeling. And probably today you shared with me one of your most frustrated moments was when you started training to work on Dinosaur.
Yeah. I forget what production I came off of, and I was offered a position to animate on Dinosaur, which is CGI driven. And so I trained for probably about 6 months on Dinosaur. I had no CGI experience at all, so they brought in a teacher to teach myself and several other guys who had transitioned from traditional to learn the CGI and how to the mouse and the keyboard, and I was making great progress. And for some reason, I was starting to get depressed, and I finally figured out what was happening is that all the time I was training in CGI is so labor intensive that I hadn't drawn, and I was missing drawing so bad that I was just sort of. Not even sort of. I was depressed because I wasn't drawing, and I went to the director, Eric Light, and I said, I've got to leave this picture because, I just need to draw. I just miss drawing so much. It's just such a part of me that I just can't do this anymore. And so I left the projection, Dinosaur, and went over to I think I got picked up on Fantasia, 2000. But it's just drawing and expressing myself through pencil is just such a part of me that. Take that away, and it's like a man leaving the house without a belt. There's something missing. I mean, you can get around without it, but I need that belt. I need my drawing tablet.
All right.
Yes. Hello, my name is Magellan Zufor.
Okay.
I'm a first-year student at Museum Studies.
Okay.
I want to give him a book just for his name.
I took that program back in the 80s.
Really? How did you like it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a lot. I really love molding and casting.
So when you started out, did you have any idols or people that you looked up to, like Walt Disney or any other animator?
No, actually, like I said, when I hadn't seen a Disney film in probably 10 years. When I went to Disney in '75, the Disney studio, I had no. People coming in from CalArts, they have a history of Disney. They have they studied these great animators who were still at the board, animating. Milt Kahl, Ollie Johnson, Frank Thomas. These guys were still at the board animating, and coming from say CalArts or a place that had had animation programs. The guys would come in and they'd be gooey eyes at these giants. I came in. I had no idea who these guys were. And so I had no idols in the sense of this guy's an artist and want to be like this person. I had none of that. And what I learned wasn't flavored by what I had learned in art school, because I had no animation experience whatsoever. I didn't know any animators. And so this was, so like I said, I had nobody that I wanted to be like. I just knew that art was fun for me. I enjoyed drawing, and that was it.
Well, that actually was probably a good thing for you, because when you did show up at Disney and you were learning under the 9 old men,
Right.
you weren't awestruck.
No, definitely. Working, doing in-betweens for Frank Thomas, and having access to Ollie Johnson, speaking to those guys. It's like if I was playing center field and Willie Mays was in left field and Hank Aaron's right. These great, these Hall of Famers, you're not sitting there looking at these guys, because you got a job to do. You got to keep your focus, and, when the ball is hit, and so I had a job to do. I had an 8-hour job to do, and that was to do in-betweens for Frank Thomas, and if it wasn't good enough, then I'd be out the door. So my primary job was to do good in-betweens for Frank Thomas.
Yeah,
that was my job.
If you had idolized these guys beforehand, it might have been harder for you to do that. It would have given you a little more nerves.
It may have been, but, as time went on, you really realize how great and how prolific these guys are, but coming in, I had no idea of these guys.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hey guys, hi Ron. I just want to say thank you for coming out because this is awesome. I was here for the Air and Blaze, really insightful, very inspiring. My name's Tony.
Okay, Tony.
Hi, Tony.
I guess I kind of have a double-sided question. I just really wanted to know, what was your biggest, did you ever feel when you were animating a scene that you got it, that this was you're a pinnacle, you had, this was have you ever had, I guess, top, 3 scenes you were super proud of, that you just feel everything came together for you?
No.
No. Okay, so that leads me to my second question then. I want to know, I guess, what were your biggest, scenes that you struggled with?
I don't know. It is, because a scene would not be put in the picture if it was not carrying forth the story point that it was supposed to get across. You don't put a mediocre scene in when a scene that, again, it's got to get the story point across. And so, scenes that, a bad picture has bad scenes in it, And so, what we, again, if it gets cut in the picture, 'cause if it's not getting that story point across, then Ron, we can't use that. Go back and do it again. But the process that I go through with the thumbnails and showing the director the thumbnails and may do a scene on 8s and show it to the director and do a scene on that same scene on 4, show it to the director, do that same scene with all the in-betweens in it, show it to the director, and what can we do to fine-tune it. So there's a lot of channels we go through before the scene actually gets approved to be accepted into the picture. So it's not going to get there because it's got to go through my scrutiny, my crew's scrutiny. It's got to go through the directors. It's got to go through the producer. Eventually, it's going to be seen by the head of the animation department. Eventually, it's going to be seen by the head of the studio. So, by the time it goes through all those levels, then, it's okay.
Okay, but with that said, was there one, anything that you personally struggled with?
Well, on CBC today, you were talking about Gaston.
Well, it wasn't so much a struggle to do Gaston.
Just that balance of taking this pretty boy and making him the villain.
Yeah, that would be a drawing issue in the sense of taking a character like Gaston, who is a pretty boy, who's this handsome guy, but on the inside he's really rotten, as opposed to the Beast, who is a beast on the outside, but on the inside he's got a heart of gold, and trying to get that story point across. So it wasn't so much a struggle as much as it was a challenge to pull that off to the audience, to draw him, really into himself, so narcissistic that, and find that pose and that drawing and how he held himself, and say, is this getting across the story point that he's arrogant and he's full of himself, and find those drawings, and then not only find those drawings, but now we have to take it to say Andreas Dija, who is the head of the crew that we're working for on Gaston, and so he looks at it and says, okay, that's suppose that that can be stronger. Let's beef him up here. Let's lift his head a little bit higher. Let's do whatever it takes. And so it's that type of layered thing that we go through to get the final result. So, you know, I'm not saying, I mean, hopefully that sheds some light on your question, but, you know, there's, you know, and looking at every scene, every character that we do, it can always be done better if we had more time. But because of time restraints, you know, we got to get this done. We got to get so many scenes, so many sequences done by a certain date, because over here, you know, we got a release date that we got to meet. And so it's that type of situation.
Cool, thank you.
Hi, I'm Neil, one of the teachers here at the animation program.
Oh, great.
The third years right now are just finishing up their four-legged walks. It was awesome to see the elk and how you were working everything out, and especially
cool.
how you were putting down timing to your rough drawings and your thumbnails. Mm-hmm. And I just wondered if you talked about how you came from an illustration background, and drawing is, you know, a big part of the battle for animation, but timing's the other half. Mm. And how did you develop your sense of timing, or what advice could you give to students that are trying to develop theirs?
Observation. You know, you observe people, you observe animals, and then, you know, the motivation, what's causing them to walk. If you're scared, you're going to walk a little faster. If you're really scared and spooked, you're going to run. How long does it take to do that? You know, a regular walk, 1,001, 1,002, 1,003. You know, the foot placement. How much time does it take to lift up this foot, put down this foot? You know, and so a lot of it is just putting in the time of observation and having, you know, the first thing my wife bought me when I went to work at Disney was a stopwatch. Boom, you know, timing. And so a combination of observation, a combination of actually timing and see what it takes, and then in actual animation, maybe it's a little faster, maybe it's a little slower, maybe the scene calls for it to be a stealth walk, or maybe the scene calls for it to be a little, and so, you know, it just depends on what the motivating factor of why the character is walking and doing what he's doing, and the timing it takes for him to do it. You know, 1,001. You know, what does it take? What does the story point take for me to go from here to here? Either slow and methodic, or really fast. You know, so what does that scene call for that character to do? And so you got a stopwatch. You're figuring it out in your head. And like I said, one of the big pieces of advice I got early on was half the time thinking about a scene, and the other half the time actually animating a scene. So once you get it thought out and just putting down some rough timing, got this drawing here, how long is it going to take to get from this drawing into this drawing? How long is it going to take to go from here to here? You do it a number of times, you get it figured out in your head where it actually becomes second nature in your thinking. Because most of the timing, that rough timing that I put down on those thumbnails, that's just rough timing that I'm figuring out. It should take approximately this amount of time to do this. It take a little, probably this amount of time to do that. And so by figuring this out and then actually exposing those on film and seeing, well, this, and again, I'm doing this on like 8s, you know. And so now I'm figuring, okay, this could be a little faster, this could be, and then I shoot on 4s and see if that timing still works. And most of the time, I got into the point where most of the timing did work, you know, with some adjustments. So a lot of it is just guesswork, and then once you put it on film, you're going to get a real feel of whether or not it's working or not, whether or not it's being a little slower, a little faster, or pushed to a little bit more extreme. So a lot of it, again, is just observation and then just the timing. The older guys, they use a metrodome, or the metro, I think it's called a metrodome.
Metronome. Yeah.
Where they had it on, Eric Larson had one on his piano, and he'd get that baby going and figure out the timing and stuff. And I said, I had a stopwatch, so whatever means they use for timing, then, you know, whatever it's gonna help you to get across that story point.
Thank you very much.
Actually, that was a really great question.
Is it fair if we give a teacher the book?
It feels like we're pandering to the faculty.
Give it to someone else, it's good.
But you see where I'm getting at is I like the technical questions. I don't like the touchy-feely stuff.
He's not a very touchy-feely guy.
Well.
First off, thank you for being here. I think everyone really appreciates it. So my question is, what's the best piece of advice you've gotten from one of the 9 old men or one of your mentors when you first started that you've really carried with you through your career?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it before, is that the only limitations that an animator has is his imagination and his ability to draw what he imagines. And that really has stuck with me throughout the years. And by drawing so much for my quick sketches, I had no problem with being able to draw the drawing part. It's the imagination. I didn't want to limit myself by my imagination being limited. So exposure to books, exposure to museums, exposure to artwork, or exposure to what other artists are doing, just trying to fill my head with all this information and images so that whenever a scene called for something, it was something in the world for me to draw from. So I wasn't limited by my imagination. I certainly was not going to be limited by my ability to draw what I imagined. Because oftentimes we have something an idea in our head, but we just can't put it on paper. And so we limit ourselves. So the thing I would, the takeaway from this question would be to, continue to expose yourself to all the media around you, being observant of things that are happening around you. If you can't go to Paris, you look at a book about Paris. You don't know how to play the piano, you look at people who play the piano, or you get some, because if I was to animate somebody who played the piano, which I don't play the piano, I'd observe them. I'd get all the input that I could and see how they hold their arms, their wrists, their fingers, and how they move to the music and what they're doing with their, and to give myself exposure in that sense. So limitations of an artist is his imagination and his ability to draw what he imagined. That's one thing that really, really stuck with me early on.
Thank you.
Sure.
We only got about 10 minutes left. And then we're going to be out at the table, so you can talk to him out there. It's all good.
We'll try to do these real fast. Okay, fine.
Hello, I'm Zoe.
Sorry.
Nope, move on. No.
Okay. My question is, well, everybody says to get into an industry, you have to put your foot in the door. How do I get my foot in Disney's door?
Well, most of the people at Disney are really, really open to answering letters to people who inquire about what they're doing. You can look at the screen credits and pick out a name and address it to whoever was in a department that you would be interested in, and just send a letter. And I've gotten many letters over the years, and some people will answer them and some people don't. But you don't have anything to lose. But by reaching out, because most of the guys are really, really willing to share their knowledge, and you may get a letter back giving you some direction as to what you want to do. I certainly answered all of my letters, but there are those who will not answer them. But you have nothing to lose to try that step and to talk with somebody who's in the industry.
Thank you.
Just remember that Disney doesn't do 2D animated films anymore. And all the 2D animated stuff they are doing, half of it's done here in Ottawa at Mercury, and the other half is done in Nova Scotia.
Both great places.
DHX. They are.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah. And
Hi, Sarah.
I'm actually in pre-animation, so me, like,
So you're in his class.
yes, Rich. Hello, Rich.
By the way, Rich was instrumental in us finally getting into Algonquin and doing these. So Aaron Blaze being here was
Yeah.
entirely on his shoulders.
He came into our class and he asked, okay, we need people to raise their hands because then he'll definitely come if we can get enough people to be interested in this, please, guys. And everyone's like, oh, are you kidding? Yeah, of course, what? But I just wanted to thank you, even though as soon as I thank you, like, everyone's like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna get a little bit into the feelings, I'm sorry. He can't even deal with it. Oh my gosh, rude.
There he is. Corey, ladies and gentlemen.
It's interesting because, well, before I ask my question, I'm sorry. You don't know about me, I'm just a student here, but you shaped my childhood, which I didn't even really know about, through Atlantis, which I was freaking obsessed with when I was a kid, especially Dr. Sweets. He was my favorite, so funny all the time. But that changed me as a person, those animations. They made my just mind expand, and all these ideas that I didn't have before, they just came through like, oh my gosh, these concepts, they're so interesting, like no one's ever thought of them before. Oh, rude. What's going, oh, now I feel bad.
All right, I'm a sucker.
Oh, Corey has a heart after
you.
all.
Oh my gosh. But, oh, now I feel really bad. I'm sorry, I called you rude. It's just, it's amazing. Like, there are just people who impact your lives that you never really knew about. But onto the question, it was originally going to be about how your angsty young adult self dealt with other people being good at art, but you basically covered that, and then you expanded on it in the first question. And
I do what I do.
well, at least I had a backup. So it's really common for artists to become arrogant and big-headed when they become well-known artists. Like you yourself, you were even kind of like that in high school, you said, like getting kicked out of art class. How have you dealt with that? Like, you've had people cry at your artwork because it was exactly what they envisioned when they told it to you. How have you managed to stay so normal, basically? Everyone looks up to you like, I don't really want to compare you to God, but like, you're up there.
But you just called him normal. Like, normal is a setting on a hairdryer. There is no such thing as normal.
Words are not my strongest thing right now. I'm kind of nervous, guys.
It's okay. I think we get what you're saying. And
yeah.
I know when I first became an animator, I was cocky.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, I knew everything. And then I got hired, and I knew nothing.
No, it's very humbling to do a piece of work and have people respond to it. I showed some things up here that were humorous, and you guys laughed, and so it's just gratifying to be able to do something that other people can relate to, and so it's nothing that I was born with the natural talent to draw. It's nothing I worked at to get to be an artist. I was born an artist. I had nothing to do with it. I just taken classes and trying to get better at the craft. So it's humbling, and people have different personalities, and maybe they get puffed up with what they're doing, but it's not me, because I get home, I gotta take up the trash, I gotta vacuum, I gotta do stuff around the house my wife wants me to do, so there's a balance in it. I do stuff like this, but I still gotta do stuff around the house.
Things. All the normal people things.
I'm just a normal person.
I know, because it's just that I've met comic book artists, and they're just so full of themselves, and they don't
Neil
think
Adams.
anyone will ever reach them.
Well, if I ever get cocky, you have permission to kick me. Next question. We ran
We
out
got
of
time
Yeah,
for
we
one
got
last
we got
question.
5 minutes, so yeah, this is probably our last question.
Unless it's the lightning round.
Hi, I'm Alex, and
Yeah.
I'm in the pre-animation program after dropping out the game development program here at Algonquin. And all three of you are like professionals, like in the entertainment industry, animation, and so on so forth. After like years of experience, and like, you said just like do like practicing and like do like drawing with a purpose, like define like what you want to do, and like it's only like recently that I discovered like I love art, and that's something I want to be a part of and want to do, but I have no idea like as like eventually I'm gonna have to find it as a viable career, and it's just like it's kind of like overwhelming with the thoughts like, yeah, like this is what I love, but I just don't know like how, like whether it be like in a year or 5 years or whatever. Like I just hate not being in control of not having like the skills right now to do anything worthwhile or amount to anything later on. So what would be your perspective on that?
Well, be the best you can where you are. One of the definitions that I use for success is the execution of the fundamentals. You're in school, go to class, get the best grades you can, preparing yourself for a future career. What that career is going to be, I had no idea that I was going to end up at Disney for the last 38 years of a chunk of time. I just prepared myself to be the best I could be where I was. And reaching out, networking, touching base with other people who are in a career that you perhaps may want to go into at some time, getting some reading about that field, getting as much input on that field as you can. But where you are, you're in school, go to school, get to class on time, do your homework, do everything to prepare yourself for whatever's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen in the future, but you can do something right now, and that's to be the best you can be.
Be okay with failing. You're gonna fall down. Just get back up. I can tell you right now, you say we're all professionals and whatnot up on this stage, but 4 years ago I switched from working on feature films to the video game industry, and 9 months later I got laid off, and I haven't had a job since. I had to start my own company and start picking up freelance jobs, and last year that all went away too. I fell on my face. And I did not work from September to February. And I've picked myself back up, and I'm still pushing forward. You just have to be okay with failing. It's gonna happen, and you can't give up just because you failed. I wouldn't be sitting on this stage right now if I had let it do that to me. Because for a while, I lost it. I gave up on everything, and the people around me encouraged me. And sometimes it's hard to hear you're talented. Go for it. Keep doing it. I even let this podcast slide, and maybe a few people who listen to the podcast maybe noticed that for about 2 months we might have put out 3 episodes. But we're back to doing it weekly, and it was very important for me to move forward to get Ron up on this stage, and so we're going to push forward. And so just be okay with failing. You're going to fail. Just pick yourself up and move forward.
Okay.
It sounds easy. It's not. Do it anyway.
Thank you.
None of us are getting out of here alive, so.
But speaking of getting out of here, we have to end it there. Ron will be coming out to the table in the lobby. So if you got some more questions for him and you want him to sign something,
I think I will do the Alice Cooper thing.
You're going to do the Alice Cooper toss? All right. Woohoo! Push the button, have a seizure.
Bye-bye.
Oh, there we go. All right, so we'll see you out at the table. Thank you for coming out, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Listen to the podcast.
And everyone, please exit safely.
Yes, exit safely. Tip your waitress.
Tip me.
Yeah, you can tip us. We
Use
take
the gas
large
money.
checks and small children. Capturing children.
Capture children, yes. We'll end on that note.
All right, let's get the heck off stage.